Our friend James Wallace says, "Hey Rob, so I was watching Batman 1989 and it's mind-boggling to me how this film seems to get a pass due to nostalgia. To a degree I understand, there's a part of me that still likes aspects of the film, yet it's a disaster too. It's a nonsensical 80s music video of a comic book film." I don't disagree. The reason I write this is due to the talk about The Dark Knight Rises the other night. I get the criticisms for that film. However, I'll trade that film any day for half of the superhero films that are getting released now, and people remain silent on the narrative problems with these films. But with regard to Batman, the film is a mess. Last week, I watched Star Trek II for the umpteenth time due to the film turning 39, and the other night I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark due to its 40th anniversary of release. Star Trek II is my favorite Trek film, and Raiders is probably just a favorite film of mine, and revisiting the film the other day showcases that it's close to a perfect film. I think both of them are, actually. These films are rightfully still celebrated, and someone on the Post-Geek Singularity celebrated Batman since it's now 33 years old, and due to Keaton's return as Batman on the Flashpoint set, I figured I would revisit the film. It's amazing how films from the 1980s are still relevant today due to the launch of franchises that still thrive. What I saw tonight invites so many questions. For those that don't know, Sam Hamm's script had a lot more to the narrative than the final film, and over the years he's mentioned in interviews that he wasn't a fan of the final decisions. Tim Burton is good with visuals, but logic and character were definitely not his forte during this period of his filmmaking career. For starters, Vicki Vale is one of the worst characters, just a terrible excuse for a love interest, and a forced damsel in distress. In fact, probably one of the least intelligent damsels in distress that has ever been witnessed on film. As a photographer, she doesn't even know who Bruce Wayne is or what he looks like. Do you know if any of these guys are Bruce Wayne? And what do you do for a living? I mean, Bruce is obviously not a nobody in Gotham City to have a charity ball that's a who's who of the city. She doesn't know who he is, yet has the invitation to the party for Knox ready when he's searching his desk. Also, one night with Wayne and they love each other, or she loves him, barely knows him, or we don't see a scene justifying this love. Alfred opines to Bruce about getting with Vicki, and Alfred barely knows her. She's then told by Bruce to meet at the museum, gets a weird package with a gas mask, people die in the museum due to the Joker's poisonous gas, and it's not really a big deal to her. Then Psycho Joker dances into the place as soon as he hits the table, blowtorching candles, she treats him like they're on a speed date. When he threatens to spray acid at her, she throws water in his face. Water! And he's acting like he's been injured. What does she do? Pats him on the back like, "Are you okay? This man just tried to spray acid on her." She's not running for her life. No, she's patting him on the back. Later, when the Joker shows up at her apartment, she genuinely seems like she cares about him when he informs her about his girlfriend's death. Plus, in this scene, is Bruce psychic? How does he know that the bullet the Joker will fire at him won't hit him in the head or the shoulder or the groin? No, that small caliber, wait a minute, how does he know it'll be a small caliber bullet that will be shot at him? How does he not know one of the Joker's goons won't shoot him with a .45? Also, why doesn't he just escape the apartment? He returns only to get shot, using a perfume tray as a bulletproof shield. A perfume tray. What's the point of him going back into that room if he's not going to do something instead of playing dead? Plus, why would the Joker leave? He's got Vicki Vale. Why not take her with him? What's the point of this scene except for the pale moonlight line, which would have been used in another scene? The scene is pointless. Plus, why would Vicki Vale go into a church with the Joker? Why not run? Yeah, I know he's pointing a 3-foot barrel gun at her, but he seems to have a crush on her, and she realizes this, so why not a chance to run? Ah, hell, I'm just going to list the problems with this film with regards to logic. Axis chemical scene. Eckhart is just wandering around waiting to get shot. Commissioner Gordon is in a dangerous environment, yet lets all the patrolmen leave alone to get a gun pointed at him. Bruce Wayne and Batman, we have no idea why he does what he does. Sure, we know the character due to the comics, but point out a scene in the film where he makes it clear why he's a vigilante. Why does he want to go after criminals? Of course, later in the film, we find out about his parents, but it's so tacked on that the filmmakers are probably like, ah, shit, we have to show an emotional reason for him to kill the Joker. Speaking of the Batman killing, fanboys went nuts over Zack Snyder's Batman killing, but Keaton's Batman seems to get a pass. I wonder why. The 200th Joker Gotham celebration, where are the cops? They just allow the Joker to come in and kill people. Cops show up at the church, which is funny. When the bell falls and blocks the door, Gordon pushes on the bell a couple of times and says, "Ah, let's go." Speaking of the cops, Joker distributes the cosmetics that are killing people, and his hideout is Axis chemicals, and the cops don't even try and apprehend him. He's hiding in plain sight. Batman figures it out and blows up the place. But when people are getting killed, cops are like, love that Joker. Batwing over the moon, love the visual, but what's the point? The amount of time it took Batman to do that, he could have been saving lives. Joker gets his men to shoot the crowd out of the streets. The men could have killed the citizens. Is Batman about showing off or saving people from criminals? Fanboys criticize the burning bat symbol on the building in The Dark Knight Rises, but the Batwing over the moon scene gets a pass? The church scene. Joker and Vicki go in, and once on the roof, Joker's men are there already? Plus, she doesn't know Batman's alive, yet she's submitting to Joker? Does she have a weird rapid Stockholm Syndrome crush on him? Plus, if the Joker's men are up there, why does the helicopter arrive minutes later? Also, why does Vicki Vale take the Joker's hand on the side of the ledge? Joker grabbed Batman and Vicki, also a huge problem with this. How can a man in his 50s standing on a ledge be able to grab a man in a batsuit and a woman, flip them over a ledge, and he didn't break his back or fall off the building without a harness? Logic, people. Logic. I just don't get how this film gets a pass. Keaton is serviceable in the role, but we barely see him as the character in the film to really shine, and yet he's still people's favorite Batman. This film is only considered what it is due to nostalgia, and because it was the film that, due to its success, helped to open the floodgates for modern comic book films. Then years later, X-Men really influenced the tide. But tell me, Rob, why on earth does this film get the pass? I don't get it. Fanboys or YouTube critics will rip apart Nolan or Snyder films, but this one is so nonsensical and gets a pass. You know, I think it was 2019. I went and saw Batman in the theater. I saw it, I think it was at the Cinerama Dome. I went and saw Batman in the Dome. And it's not a good movie. Everything you said is absolutely true. And I think it ultimately, the climax of the film is boring. It's a lot of cantered camera shots, and I could rip on Batman all I want, and all you want, and a lot of people might want. But I'll tell you, while I don't think it's a good movie, I think it's an interesting vision. The way Anton Furst's production design works. As a narrative feature, I don't think it works at all. And it's almost like you're watching a succession of like you're watching the like a Reader's Digest condensed version of the real movie. That's probably 4 or 6 hours long. That's kind of what it felt like to me. There is no real narrative flow. Things happen. We're filling in. It's one movie where we as an audience fill in half the movie and still go with it because it was such a. The only take on film of Batman up to that point was the Adam West series, and it was so different from that. I think people were sort of mesmerized. They were ensorcelled into loving this movie. So I don't think you're wrong. And I think a lot of it does have to do with nostalgia. I mean, that movie came out 32 years ago, which means you might have been 10 years old. If you're 42 now, you were and you saw it when you were 10, it probably had a huge impact on you. And then it was a sell-through tape on the video home video market, so it sold cheap. So everybody bought that tape and watched it a million times. So I think it was ingrained. I think it's one of those movies that, like you said, if you step back and actually, I was surprised because I hadn't seen Batman. For me, I don't find that Tim Burton's Batman has much rewatchability. I love The Dark Knight. And as you pointed out, The Dark Knight Rises, I really like watching that too. As many problems as I have with that movie, I like the characters, I like the scenes. Even though the movie doesn't make a lick of sense, it's got logic problems. I would ask everyone to read or watch the Critical Drinker's analysis of The Dark Knight Rises. I think it's actually pretty damn good. But yeah, I think that I don't think Batman is very good, and I think all of the things that you identified are correct. But I'll tell you, I think there's something about the Tim Burton Batman that sort of goes beyond criticism because it was a gateway drug for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, when they look, I don't understand the love for Return of the Jedi. When I saw Return of the Jedi, obviously Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back were hugely important to my life. And to this day, Return of the Jedi is the biggest cinematic disappointment I've ever had. There are people watching this going, wait, what? Burnett, I'm not watching you. Unsubscribe. Unlike. But for me, Star Wars and Empire, taken collectively together, because no one had ever seen anything like that, was building to something I thought would be tremendous. And while I do enjoy the rescue of Han Solo, because it's like a movie unto itself, and I absolutely adore the throne room confrontation between Vader, the Emperor, and the rest, and Luke, the rest of the film is inconsequential. There's hardly any there. And it would have been really interesting if there was a lot more going on, like Leia has her own struggle with the light and dark side, and maybe she would have been seduced or something. I wanted a Lawrence of Arabia or an Apocalypse Now level of film from Return of the Jedi. I wanted something huge and epic, and what we got was sort of small-minded and for children. It's not just the Ewoks, it's the whole attitude of the film. Our characters are walking around completely out of character, especially Han Solo. Hey, it's me. I mean, he felt like he was doing a parody of his own character. So, and yet people love Return of the Jedi. People are incapable, I think, of seeing it for what it really is. I feel the same way about Batman. But that's not to take away. I mean, if you like Batman, you should like Batman. I have a Hot Toys Batmobile from the '89 version. I like the design work. I love my Jack Nicholson Joker. But I do think that the film is very lacking. When you go back and watch it, it's a hard film.